5 creepy short stories to tell in the dark. There is nothing I love more than scary stories. The adrenaline, the rush of fear. If you know me, then you would know how much I love telling creepy tales, especially during a sleepover with my friends. Remember huddling together in the dark, whispering these tales and letting our imaginations run wild? Man, those were the days. What I enjoyed the most were those short, creepy story collections I found online as a kid. You know, the ones, simple, quick reads that left you with chills down your spine. I thought it might be fun to share some of these stories with everyone. So dim the lights, get cozy, and prepare to be spooked. Until this day, whenever I tell these stories, it never fails to impress, so here they are, 5 of some of my favourite short, scary stories. It was a late night, the kind of night where the wind howled outside and every shadow seemed to writhe and twist. A father, exhausted after a long day, went to check on his young son. He pushed open the door to the softly lit room, expecting to see his son soundly asleep. Instead, he was met with a sight that made his blood run cold. There, curled up under the covers, was a figure. The figure seemed to be his son, but something felt off. The hair seemed different, the shape of the head. It was subtle, but wrong. As he leaned closer, the figure in the bed turned, and what he saw made him want to scream. The thing in his son's bed had eyes that glowed with an unnatural intensity, and its mouth was stretched into a grotesque grin, revealing rows of sharp, pointed teeth. The father stumbled back in horror, knocking over a lamp in his haste. The sudden darkness seemed to amplify the terror. His heart pounding in his chest, the father scrambled for the light switch. As the room flickered back to life, he saw something that chilled him to the bone. Huddled under the bed, his eyes wide with terror, was his real son. The boy, his face pale and streaked with tears, whispered, "Daddy, there's something in my bed." The father, his gaze darting back to the now empty bed, felt a cold dread grip his heart. He had just enough time to scoop his son into his arms before whatever had been there vanished into the night. Picture this. A lone hiker caught in a raging storm. The wind howled through the trees and rain lashed down, soaking him to the bone. He desperately needed shelter, and that's when he saw it, a small wooden cabin nestled amongst the trees. The windows were dark, but the door creaked open as if inviting him in. Grateful for the refuge, the hiker stepped inside. The storm raged outside, but inside the cabin it was eerily silent. A fire crackled in the hearth, casting flickering shadows on the walls. As the hiker warmed himself by the fire, his gaze fell upon a collection of strange paintings on the walls. They were portraits, but the faces were distorted, almost grotesque. Their eyes seemed to follow him, watching his every move. He tried to shake off the unsettling feeling, but the eyes in those paintings seemed to bore into his soul. He decided to try and get some rest, but sleep wouldn't come. Every time he closed his eyes, he could feel those eyes on him, watching, judging. He tossed and turned, the wind howling outside, mimicking the growing unease in his gut. Then a sudden gust of wind slammed a shutter against the side of the cabin, and the hiker jumped. He turned back to the paintings, and that's when he noticed it. The eyes in the paintings, they weren't painted on, they were holes looking in. He was not alone in the cabin. Someone or something was watching him from just outside those windows. The hiker didn't wait to see what was out there. He flung open the door and ran headlong into the storm. The terrifying image of those watching eyes seared into his mind. Chapter 3. The Red Wristband. A young doctor found himself alone in the hospital elevator late one night. He was exhausted, his mind still buzzing from a particularly grueling shift. Just as the doors began to close, a figure shuffled in, a thin, elderly man with a haunted look in his eyes. The man wore a hospital gown and his wrist was adorned with a bright red wristband. The doctor knew what that red band signified: do not resuscitate. The man leaned heavily against the railing, his chest rattling with each breath. The doctor, though weary, couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy for the man. He tried to make small talk, asking the man his name, how he was feeling, but the old man remained silent, his gaze fixed on the elevator doors. The air grew heavy, filled with an unspoken tension. The elevator lurched to a halt, plunging them into darkness. A wave of dizziness washed over the doctor. He fumbled for his phone, the pale light illuminating the confined space. That's when he noticed something strange. The red wristband on the man's arm. It was gone. He looked closer, his heart pounding in his chest. The man's skin, once papery and pale, was now tinged with a sickly grey. The doctor's blood ran cold as he realized the truth. The old man was dead. The elevator lurched back to life and the doors slid open. The doctor stumbled out, his eyes darting back to the empty elevator. The only evidence of the encounter was the faint, lingering scent of decay. Chapter 4. White with Red. Imagine a young man walking home alone late one night. The streetlights cast long, eerie shadows that danced and twisted with every step he took. As he passed by a particularly dark and dilapidated house, he noticed something strange. A faint light flickered from behind a boarded-up window. Curiosity got the better of him, and he cautiously approached the house. He peered through a small hole in the wood, hoping to catch a glimpse of what was inside. At first, all he saw was darkness, but then, as his eyes adjusted, he made out a figure standing in the center of the room. It was a woman, dressed in a long, flowing white gown. Her back was to him, but he could see that her hair was long and black, cascading down her back like a silken waterfall. He watched as she slowly turned, and his breath caught in his throat. Her face was as white as chalk, her features stark and unsettling, but it was her eyes that truly terrified him. They were wide and staring, burning with an unnatural intensity, and they were the color of blood. The man stumbled back from the window, his heart pounding in his chest. He didn't wait to see any more. He turned and ran faster than he had ever run before. The image of the woman with the blood-red eyes seared into his mind. He never looked back, and he never dared to walk down that street again, haunted by the memory of what he had seen. Chapter 5. A Mother's Call. A young girl, home alone for the night, settled in to watch a movie. The wind howled outside, and rain lashed against the windows, creating a cozy, if slightly eerie, atmosphere. As she reached for her popcorn, the phone rang, startling her. She answered, and a familiar voice filled her ear. "Hello, sweetie, it's Mum. Are you okay?" The girl relaxed, relieved to hear her mother's voice. Her mum was working late as usual, but she always made time to check in. "Yeah, Mum, I'm fine, just watching a movie." "That's good, honey. Listen, I'm going to be later than I thought. Don't wait up for me, okay? Love you?" The girl smiled. "Love you too, Mum. See you later." She hung up the phone and snuggled back into her blanket, but a nagging feeling settled in her stomach. Something about the call felt off. Her mother's voice had sounded strained, almost too high-pitched. She tried to shake off the feeling, but it persisted. Then, just as she was about to turn the movie back on, the phone rang again. She answered, her heart pounding. "Mum! Is everything okay?" Silence. Then a raspy voice, barely a whisper, spoke. "There's been an accident." The girl's blood ran cold. "Mum? Mum, is that you?" The voice on the other end chuckled, a chilling, hollow sound. "Your mother can't come to the phone right now, dear. She's a little tied up." The girl slammed the phone down, her heart racing. She knew with a certainty that chilled her to the bone that it wasn't her mother on the other end of the line. She ran to the window, peering out into the darkness, and that's when she saw her. Her real mother, standing on the porch, her face pale with terror, frantically waving her arms. Out of sweet dreams. I hope you enjoyed these spine-chilling tales as much as I did. Remember, the next time you hear a strange noise or see something out of the ordinary, it might just be the start of your own scary story. Until next time, keep the lights on and remember, sometimes the scariest monsters are the ones we create in our own minds. Sweet dreams.